factories may need to be reoriented, for example. All these are costs that will be incurred whenever you have a huge revolution or technological breakthrough. And for the ASEAN countries, rather than closing the door to highly efficient e-commerce platforms or applications, maybe the better way is to understand the change in doing business, in how commerce is being done, and embrace those platforms and applications that you may eventually choose with the purpose of increasing efficiency and productivity, lowering the price for the consumers, and eventually making living standards more affordable and quality of life more prevailable for as many people as possible. I don't think it is worthwhile to pick a fight with the emerging technologies.
We need to work together with ASEAN to have a dialogue or have an engagement with China to say that, we are worried about this influx of goods and that we should discuss it openly to see what are the solutions that we need to have. I mean, I remember going through this when I was Minister of Trade. In the same issue we faced with the China-ASEAN free trade area. And the conclusion was, okay, we need to increase investments of China here to produce here. So I still think that's a valid argument. But now we have we should come together as ASEAN, and I think the world has changed since 15 years ago. There's now e-commerce. There's a lot more other opportunities that can actually help SMEs to be part of the ongoing trade and investments that are going on between ASEAN and China. But I do think we as ASEAN need to come together to, it's better for us to do that, to face China.
It is not just in Southeast Asia where there are concerns around Chinese exports. Chile, Mexico, Brazil, and India have all imposed anti-dumping measures on some Chinese exports. The United States of America is the biggest export market for ASEAN economies. In 2024, the U.S. overtook China as Southeast Asia's largest export market. But access to that market is under threat in the current Trump administration.
How can Indonesia deal with an increasingly protectionist USA?
I would say we have a solid plan. I cannot tell you, but I think I'm quite confident we have a solid plan, yeah.
We won't go into your solid plans, but can you tell us a bit more about how Indonesia is trying to diversify its trade partners and deepen its trade relationships with other countries?
We are now have a ongoing discussion with EU, on the comprehensive economic partnership. So I think this is a very important part of our strategy to do a trade diversification, especially with Europeans,
President Trump is a businessman. He likes making deals. He likes discussing deals. I think Malaysia and ASEAN has to take a more proactive approach. And what does this mean? I think this would entail Malaysia putting certain value propositions or preparing certain value propositions that we can put forth to the Trump administration. So, for example, to show that Malaysia can be a good player in the critical mineral supply chain, of which there are sources in Malaysia that can be procured. We already have a critical minerals processing plant in Lynas. We should be, I think, open to more investments in this area.
China placed export restrictions on rare earth elements on the 4th of April 2025 as part of its response to U.S. tariffs. 7 categories of rare earths were placed on an export control list. These are crucial elements needed for defense and technology. Several countries in ASEAN have large rare earth deposits and have repeatedly said that they are open to investments from all countries in this space.
The commitment from Indonesia is that we want our product to be freely sold to any countries.
With so much pressure from both the world's superpowers, should Southeast Asia be optimistic, about economic growth in 2025.
I believe we are quite resilient in sort of navigating the headwinds that are, a lot of it is external. We need to focus, if we can focus on our domestic homework, and we have the domestic market as a base for our growth, and if we can use our domestic resources to increase the efficiency and competitiveness of Indonesia and create jobs, I think we will still be able to grow at 5%.
I'm cautiously optimistic about Malaysia and also ASEAN's growth trajectory in the next 5 to 10 years. I think the China Plus One strategy will continue regardless of what happens in the United States. And in fact, I would say that what is happening in the United States may give even more reason for global companies to want to invest in ASEAN because of our stability, because of our growing domestic markets, because of our increasing incomes per capita, and also the fact that we are seen as a region that is friendly towards all parties. That's why the World Bank and the IMF has projected that ASEAN as a whole would probably grow faster than even China over the next 3 years.
ASEAN's got a plan B in place. They've got to integrate more deeply with each other, not take on Trumpian views. They've got to work with willing partners who see the same thing, whether in Asia or with the EU, who are facing certain dilemmas as well. So ASEAN has swum with the tide. When globalization was strong post-Cold War, ASEAN really moved fast. We're now swimming against the tide, but we've got to keep swimming.
Restricted zone.
This station was the biggest in the Far East.
That conceals tales of power, industry and conflict.
The workers, of course, they are angry. Military forces were deployed to defend this place against attacks.
The engines fueling a nation. Hidden Histories, Sunday on CNA.
South Korea's second largest city at risk of vanishing.
Jobs there have been closing down. The company's been closing down.
Young Koreans leaving to chase better prospects.
수도권 중심으로 획일화된 느낌이 크게 들어서 그게 좀 아쉽습니다.
Busan facing extinction. Wednesday on CNA.
In Singapore, something happens every minute. Each event vying for your attention. We're always there to cover the news. But what if we also give you more? What if we told you we go deep into the data, find stories you care about, and explain issues clearly, from housing to healthcare, security to sustainability. We give you the bigger picture on Singapore Tonight.
Hello and good evening. I'm Shahida Othman. Tonight's top stories.
Today, internet connection allowed the surgeon to perform the surgery from anywhere in the world.
The Internet and Us, coming soon on CNA.
For every dazzling moment, freely transform your style. Elegant designs, perfectly matched. Perfect match collection. For every moment, real touch, only natural diamonds. With international grading certificate. For every moment, Mason Jewelry.
This is Singapore Tonight.
Good evening, I'm Bo Kok in tonight's top stories. Senior Minister Lee Hsien Loong stresses that a high-quality government requires high-quality candidates to run for election. He made the point as he introduced the PAP teams running in Ang Mo Kio, Yio Chu Kang, Kebun Baru and Jalan Kayu. More opposition parties lay out their priorities in manifestos and slogans. Potential candidates also unveiled by the Progress Singapore Party and the Workers' Party, which confirms it will stay within the East and Northeast regions. Areas managed by Marine Parade Town Council to get a facelift over the next 5 years. There will be new wellness and leisure facilities, including a multi-generational park and the nation's largest polyclinic. Also tonight, the role of social media in engaging voters. Media analysts explain how it can complement on-the-ground efforts. Senior Minister Lee Hsien Loong says Singapore needs a pool of high-quality MPs to appoint ministers from to ensure a capable government in the long term. He was responding to a question from CNA on who may fill the defense minister position after Dr. Ng Eng Hen announced he was stepping down. Mr. Lee says he himself will continue to serve as long as he's useful.